Adam Savage here at the Smithsonian Air and Space Museum, and I'm standing in the America by Air Gallery, and this is, as you can see, unfinished, and it is part of their massive 7-year, 23-gallery and public space renovation. And what you don't know is that 2 years ago, all of the planes in this gallery were taken out of it, transported to another location where they were restored and checked out and made sure they're all good, and then brought back here and hung from the ceiling again. And that is such a giant project. 2 years does not sound like enough time, but we are going to find out exactly how they did it from Kara Katsarelis in logistics. She's going to show us or talk us through the process. Kara, I'm looking behind you and I'm looking at, what is it, like 6 or 7 hanging planes?
Yes, 6 hanging and 1 on the wall.
Okay. Now, in the last period of time of this renovation, you pulled them all out of this room and then put them all back in, is that right?
Yes, so actually 2 years ago, they went out to Hazy at our Dulles storage center, and they stayed there and they had the restoration work done, and just this summer they came back into the gallery. 3 of them required superloads to come through across the highway from Virginia into DC.
Oh wow, like big slow trucks with like cops and flashing lights
in the middle of the night, yes.
Oh.
The amazing team organizes that and has all the permits in place to make sure that happens. Wow. So those all came in between June and August, so 2 months.
Okay, so when these were in here before, presumably when they came in there was a plan. Mm-hmm. And then I'm also going to assume that when you get the task to move them out and then back in, you look at the original plan just to see what people went through to do that? Is that right?
Absolutely, and the teams use their designs and the final design for where they're supposed to be intended to hang from, and these are going back in a similar location to where they were a few years ago, but due to some of the design changes for the building, you can see their shades and baffles. Those never existed before. So that necessitated changing some of those hanging points, clamps and the rigging. So while it's very similar, there are some changes you have to make along the way.
And that, does that mean there's, I don't want to say improvising, but like lots of contingency planning once they come back in?
Lots of contingency planning and I think flexibility. Right. And making sure there's open communication so that people know what's happening every given day. And if we need to change our plan on a pivot, you can do that.
Okay, this is a weird specific logistical question, but like with objects that are this, I mean, you know, it's easy to move cubes around a thing, but these are not cubes. So when you're talking to someone about the yaw and pitch of how to move something in, do you have like an architectural model with actual planes in it that you can show people?
The designers definitely have 3D models and pull the dimensions where all the points are for center of gravity, how they're going to hang, and how they sit in relation to each other. So that all comes into play in how the design comes together.
I'm looking at how crowded together they are, and I'm going to assume that the going up process is non-trivial. Like it's not just like you hang them one at a time.
Well, we do hang them one at a time. But there's a lot of sequencing planning that goes into making sure they're hung in the correct order. They have access to all the steel they need for rigging, for the temporary hoists, because the temporary hoist may not be where the permanent rigging will be. Some require trapezing to get into their final
Trapezing, explain what trapezing is.
Instead of going straight up, you have to move it horizontally as well. So some
while
of the
it's hanging from this.
While it's hanging. So the riggers on this job are incredible and do some of the most fantastic things you could imagine. And this is truly one of those.
And then there's the added fact that you guys are stewards of these priceless objects and you don't want even an elbow dent in anything. So you have to handle these giant, heavy, ill-formed things in the most careful way possible.
Yes, absolutely. And the aircraft specialists and the artifact handlers that work on the contract that do the assembly work and the installation work all have a lot of experience. They're all vetted by the museum. The museum has their own staff that oversees it and participates, provides that guidance. So everyone is incredibly careful, but also very knowledgeable of the artifacts and what it takes to make them come together.
Is there anything behind you that I'm looking at here that gives you like, I'm really glad I'm over that part?
Ooh, all of it? It's a big milestone. Completing the hanging artifacts in this gallery is a huge milestone for the project. A lot of people put a lot of time and energy and effort into it. So we're actually probably planning to celebrate next month once a lot of those folks are able to kind of take it in and appreciate that we've got this far.
It's really exciting. It's also a really exciting, crowded clump of planes. I find it really inspiring to just stare out at this.
Yes, and everyone that comes through, even those not associated with the artifacts or the collections team, usually stands and stares just like that for a little bit to say, wow, that's really impressive.
You must go through that moment too, a couple times a day where you're like, I can't believe what I get to do.
I'm like, do I work here? I do. I do.
Amazing. Kara, thank you so much.
Of course.
Incredible.